Hello, Precisioners. Welcome back to Precision Disc Golf. This time we're looking at Peter Pan Park or Optimus Disc Golf Course in Emporia, Kansas. So this is, I think, the newest course that was put in that for a championship level course down there, designed by Eric McCabe. Hole 1 here, looking at 375 over the softball fields, and as to be expected, very windy day in Kansas in the spring. So here throwing a neutron photon, which, boy, honestly is kind of between like an AJ and a Macbeth destroyer for the Innova fans out there. It was definitely a headwind. Didn't throw any warm-up throws or anything, so it was, well, it was definitely a difficult throw. And just didn't really get over on it enough. But honestly, I just didn't want to have to go chasing it in the softball field, so I erred on the side of being short. Hole 2 here, 348. Plays uphill a bit. Yeah, I mean, it's actually, the line's a lot tighter than it looks as far as the ceiling goes. Here I'm throwing a Defy. I think it's 164. It's kind of just like a really stable Wraith or something like that. I like it. It's a pretty good wind disc for me. It was just sort of a recent addition in the bag. But yeah, this hole, it plays a lot longer than you think. I mean, I felt like I threw mine almost too far when I let go of it, and then I was still like 30 or 40 short or something. So that one has to play the better part of 380 or so. So if you play that hole, be aware. Hole 3 here, this downhill ceiling. Again, it's sort of a low ceiling, but it's a nice righty backhand glide. But there, you can see the wind really working my disc. So I thought I threw it perfect, but with that extra lift, it just went a little high. It still thankfully got me pin high with a putt there, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough hole, so I was glad to convert that one. Hole 4, really fun. This one is in the 365, so the short position, and I was trying for this sort of perceived gap right of the dead center tree by the sort of yellow flowered bushes there. But here I was throwing a 165 gram photon. I felt great. It just managed to hit that tree, but who knows? It would have maybe skipped deep left or something anyway, so it might have been for the best. And I believe that plays OB. But not a bad 3, but it would have been a nice 2 to pick up. Hole 5 was in the dead straight position, 395. A little downhill, but that whole little dry creek bed area, I believe, plays OB. So it's actually a pretty tight little window. Here I'm actually throwing a fission photon. It's a little less stable, and I was trying to hyzer flip it. I didn't flip it quite enough, but I still hit the line pretty good. So I ended up having to try this like 40-footer there. I really missed that putt. Thankfully, it hits that tree and rolls back. But really fun hole. I mean, it's one of those holes where I probably would be my favorite if I were to play this course over and over again. Hole 6 here, I believe, is in the dead straight position, so about 300 feet, but this is an insanely tight ceiling, and there's a Mando forcing you to go up this center gap here. So I was trying to hyzer flip, I think that was a switch. Anyway, so something like a leopard, but I just missed my line. I mean, I tried to get greedy and get all the way up there for a 2, and thankfully my forehand gave me a putt, but that hole is, I think the smart play is just go up the center with like a mid-range or something and try and make a jumper. Hole 7, 332, but there's water right behind it, and it was just, the headwind was really strong out there. So I'm actually throwing a Mayhem, which is supposed to be understable, but this one, for whatever reason, is very overstable. And I put it on really a nose-up hyzer, and I was hoping to get just a wide skip shot. It worked out pretty well, but again, if that thing had somehow flipped, I think it would have been OB deep. All right, hole 8, 350. This is the sort of famous circle hole, and I really like it. Just a fun throw, super easy as a righty backhand hyzer. I mean, if it wasn't really windy, I probably would have just thrown a mid-range, but here I'm throwing a shock. It's sort of, I liken it to the Thunderbird equivalent out of the Innova series, but I really like the shock. It's one of my favorites. Just a great disc, good for distance, good for control, all the above. Hole 9 here, 310 feet, does play downhill, so play shorter, and just sort of a tight little window.
Resistor.
Another great hole. I mean, this course is so well designed. I like the resistor. It's probably my favorite disc in the MVP lineup. But yeah, I thought I had a great throw here, but I forgot that the resistor is super overstable when it hits the ground, and boy, did it skip. Also, there's always train noises going around, and it's really not the best part of Emporia around there, so... oh, and don't pay attention to that putt. That was awful. But anyway, it's again, I've really enjoyed this course a lot. Hole 10, this is, I feel like what would be a deuce 90% of the time. It's really fun. You can throw this sort of narrow, straight gap, or you could try and throw something a little bit wider. You're throwing a tensor. It's a really overstable mid-range. It's like a fast, probably like a zone, something like that stability. I thought I was parked, and then I got up and I was deep. And I don't know what the deal is here. I'm just putting really high for these few putts, so not a very good display. But anyway, it's what should be a deuce hole is a pretty easy 4, I guess. But again, good touch hole. There's really no reason that should continually happen. Hole 11 here is super tight for the landing zone. So a 260, that's a Mando on the tree on the right, and then the little creek bed area there on the left is also OB, and then the sidewalk plays OB. So that was my overstable photon as a forehand, very ugly looking forehand with a very good looking result. So I don't know. I wouldn't bet that I'm going to do that again the next time. But anyways, glad to walk away with that. So I actually didn't get to play hole 12. Which is okay. I was just going to go putter and tap in because as I was about to throw this, gentleman was fishing right next to the basket and didn't leave for a while. So that was, anyway, just gave myself a 3 on that. Hole 13, this one again, because of where the lake lies, I decided to lay up. Here I'm throwing a vector. So if you felt one, it's pretty much identical to a rock 3. But this one is pretty much brand new, so I'm working it in a little bit. Then what should be a pretty easy little upshot here, but it's not super open. And when it's breezy, you know, things happen. Like there, I missed my line a little bit and I hit that branch. As you can see, I barely went off the shore, and that's how murky the water is. I will say that little lake thing in the middle of the park is pretty disgusting. There's signs up, don't go in it, don't go swimming, things of that nature. So anyway, just don't do it. If your disc goes super far in, and it tells you to wash your hands right away. Water's no good. Avoid at all costs. Hole 14 here, it says 400 feet. It actually plays longer than that. And there was a tailwind on this, so I thought I would just throw it hard and to the right, which succeeded. I just threw it way too far right on this, so, well, what do you do? But, I mean, I still left myself this, like, 35, 40-foot putt, and obviously didn't convert it. But, I mean, it's a pretty gettable hole. Like, I feel like I would probably do that 50% of the time with or without the wind. Hole 15, on the other hand, even though it's 393, it's, again, the ceiling, and especially I bet when the leaves are in, is much lower than it looks. It plays downhill, but it's just a low ceiling to get all the way there. So there I was actually throwing a wave, probably a little too much disc for it, but it's pretty understable for a driver, and thankfully I hit and sort of nestled by that tree right next to the pin. But when you get up there, you realize you could go OB long really easily. Hole 16 is awesome. I love this hole. So there's OB on the right in sort of a big ravine you don't want to go down. And at 515 feet with these low trees, it feels like you can really just air it out. I went wide left because I really didn't want to go OB. And I mean, I threw that one about as far as I can throw. I paced this jump putt off after I putted it. And I came up short. I think I thought I was closer than I was. But that's about a 75 foot putt or so. So, I mean, not bad. You know, I put it out there about 440, and that's about as good as I'm going to ask myself to do. Well, 17 was in the short here, 272. If my forehand was a little stronger, I probably would have done that, but I'm opting. This is a worked in vector here. Just throw it low and let it turn over naturally. I'm surprised it worked as well as it did given the wind. It was a bit of a throw and hope. I feel like you definitely want a naturally right fading throw for that hole. But anyway, I got away with the 2 that time. So 18 here was not in the long. It was definitely not 480. This is, I mean, I'm throwing an atom, which is a straight putter here. I'm guessing this is like 240, 260. I don't know. I mean, it didn't play long. I turned that over and I still got pinned deep. So anyway, loved Peter Pan Park. The one criticism I'll say is that it was difficult to avoid some of the park users, which it's great to see everybody using the park, but I always feel bad playing disc golf when there's people just walking around everywhere. And so anyway.